2017 meeting of the Omaha Public Power District Board of Directors. Tim Gay, I represent District 3. This is chairman for this year. I want to introduce the other board members. If you can raise your hand when I introduce you. Director, and he's our board treasurer, Rich Hurley, represents Subdivision 1. Director Ann McGuire represents Subdivision 2. Director Rick Yoder represents Subdivision 4. Craig Moody representing Subdivision 5. Vice Chair this year, Tom Barrett, to my right, representing Subdivision 6. Mick Mines representing Subdivision 7. And our board secretary is Mike Kavanaugh in Subdivision 8. And to my left is CEO Tim Burke, and to my right, far right, Kim Tracy. She'll be keeping the minutes and running the meeting nice and smoothly. One thing, if you could silence your phones, appreciate it. It's a public meeting. This meeting is being streamed live. So if you make any comments over there or any time, it will be recorded and put out on the internet. Our agenda is posted in the back. You could have picked it up out there in the back. If you haven't, they're right out the door. So I'm sure you saw those. And then we have public comment for 3 minutes. And what happens, you can comment on any item that we discuss. Come up, step up here, introduce your name, and then we will time you. There's a light system working. You got it going? Okay, there's a light system, green, yellow, red. Green, you're good. Yellow's 2 minutes. Red, your 3 minutes is expired. So kind of wrap it up. We won't cut you off midstream, hopefully. But respect that so everybody gets a chance to talk. And any questions you might have or any comments, if you can direct them at me, then possibly I may have Tim Burke or one of our senior managers get back with you or discuss with you. But we don't want an exchange back and forth, the debate going on amongst board members. With that, Tim, you want to give a safety report?
Sure. Welcome. You're in the auditorium on our atrium level here at Energy Plaza. And in the event that we would need to exit this room, obviously you came in one of the 4 exits. There's 2 in the back and 2 in the front here. But we would exit this room and essentially walk down the steps and exit on the 16th side of the building. If there is a fire, we would ask you not to use any elevator. And in the event of a severe weather or a tornado, we would ask you to follow our security folks in the back, and they will move you to a safe part of the building, probably on the west side and in the garage area. The fire extinguishers are right outside this auditorium door, and it's right by conference room A, just right around the corner on the wall. The first aid kit and the AED are one on top of each other, actually, as you would go into the kitchen area or cafeteria area. It's on the right side on the brick wall, one on top of each other. And is anybody here certified in the use of an AED or in CPR? Okay, very good. We have several who are certified in that regard. That's good. Again, in case of a fire, do not use the elevators. If you have a medical condition, please write it down or tell your neighbor, just in the event that something does occur. Let's see, in case of emergency, Kim, would you be willing to call 911? I appreciate that. And are there any any questions or safety briefing at all? Seeing none, I will turn it back to you.
Good. Kim, you want to go over the public notice for this meeting?
Notice of the time and place of this meeting was publicized by notifying the area news media, by publicizing same in the Omaha World Herald and outlets, by displaying such notice on the arcade level of Energy Plaza since July 5th, 2017, and by mailing such notice to each of the district's directors on that same date. A copy of the proposed agenda for this meeting has been maintained on a current basis and is readily available for public inspection in the office of the district's corporate secretary. Additionally, a copy of the open meetings law is available for inspection in the public meeting book located in this meeting room. Agenda item number 4, approval of the May 2017 Comprehensive Financial and Operating Report, the June 15, 2017 board meeting minutes, and the July 13, 2017 agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Barrett.
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Gay.
Yes.
Hurley.
Yes.
McGuire.
Yes.
Mines.
Yes.
Moody.
Yes.
Yoder.
Yes.
Motion carried. Agenda item number 5, resolution number 6189. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Directors of the Omaha Public Power District that the Health Plan 2016 Annual Report on the district's self-funded health plan, a copy of which is attached hereto, is hereby approved.
All right, Director Mines, Chairman of the Governance Committee. You want to cover this for us?
I need a motion in a second.
Oh, sorry.
Motion.
Need a motion.
You have a motion?
I move.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go
Now,
ahead.
Governance Committee, rather than bumble through it,
Mart, would you please do the honors?
Absolutely. Thank you, Director Mines. So in 1991, the Board of Directors authorized the formation of a self-funded administrative services only health plan. The health plan includes the health insurance programs and dental programs offered by the district. The health plan is subject to the Political Subdivision Self-Funding Benefits Act set forth in Nebraska Revised Statutes 13-1601 to 13-1626, the Benefits Act. In order to comply with the Benefits Act, we are required to prepare an annual report on the health plan and required reserves. 2 funded reserves are maintained for the health plan in accordance with that act. One reserve is to account for timing delays in claims filing and processing, which is referred to as an incurred but not presented reserve. And a second reserve ensures that funds will be available during each ensuing month, which is called the monthly claims and expenses reserve. On the attachment, you'll see the health plan report itself, all of our expenses, and then the reduction of expenses. The good news is that overall, we were down about $2.4 million in health plan costs this year over last year. So that's good news. That's primarily being driven by claims costs, which went down about $940,000. The fees and reserve adjustment went down about $400,000, and our stop loss reimbursements, we have coverage for if claims go over $450,000, then we have insurance coverage to cover the excess above that. And the stop loss reimbursements went down $972,000 due to lesser large claims this year over last year. Employee contributions did also go up due to an increase in premiums in 2016. I'll answer any questions.
Any questions? Don't see any.
Glad we're helpful.
All right, thanks, Mark. Is public comment on this, if anyone would like to comment? Don't see any. I'm gonna do a vote, Kim?
Barrett,
Yes.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Gay,
Yes.
Curley,
Yeah.
McGuire,
Yes.
Mines,
Yeah.
Mooney,
Yes.
Yoder. Motion carried. Agenda item number 6, resolution number 6190. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Directors of the Omaha Public Power District that the compensation adjustments for the corporate officers of the district as set forth on Exhibit A attached here too be and hereby are approved.
So moved.
Second.
You're up again on this?
Up
Director
again,
Lyons?
okay. This, our executive team is, and they're usually, they're evaluated and on the anniversary of their employment or their effective date, and to determine if there should be a raise in their salaries. This year has been a little bit clumsy on that end because as we went into the first of the year, we just weren't convinced that the formula we were using was fair to all. So I would guess last month we had a presentation. Actually, we contracted with an employee benefits company, the Lockton's Company from St. Louis, to evaluate the compensation in our executive and vice presidents. And they came back with their thoughts. What they did was they looked at the corporate officers' compensation and then compared that against different arrays. For instance, they compared the compensation that in OPPD compared to the same array that is used for our normal employee wages, same array of different companies, no more than twice the size or half the size of OPPD. So they did that comparison, did a comparison that also looked at local companies where we may be vulnerable for losing one of our corporate officers. It's a competitive world out there. And they also looked nationwide at other public utilities, again, no larger than twice, no less than half our size. And that report was delivered to us last month. What it told us is that we are not competitive. OPPD is not competitive in the nationwide. And our salaries are significantly below each array. So what we have done, and what we will do, is through the rest of this year, we're going to, as a board, we're going to define what formulas, for better formalizing this pay increase process, for better determining goals, objectives, and for each one of our executives. But we have to compensate our corporate executives now. So CEO President Burke has presented a salary action for corporate officers. Those include Kathleen Brown, Julie Comstock, Mo Dogman, John Hanson, Lisa Olson, and Mart Sedke. Do you want me to read salaries? I can. Yeah. Sure. Okay. Well, Kate, present salary is $290,000. Proposed salary is $298,700. That's a 3% change. Julie Comstock is $286,000. Proposed is $297,440. That's a 4% increase. Mo Dogman, $383,761. Currently proposed $395,274. That's a 3% change. John Hanson, $382,110, and proposed is $393,573. Lisa Olson, $312,000 currently. Proposed is $321,360. That's a 3% increase. And Mart Sedke, $275,000 currently, $287,375 as a proposed salary, and that's a 4.5% increase. Now, these are, in this formula that we currently use, there is a midpoint, which means that if you are at midpoint, half of the people that are compared to you in the array make less and half make more. So it's a mean is what it does. Given that, it's a total increase of about $64,851 for our corporate team, I believe this is fair and reasonable, and I would, again, I've moved for this and I would urge your support.
All right, thanks. Those salary, just by, everybody in the company's salary is on the World Herald.
Yeah, go to the World
And
Herald.
every public
a little
employee in the
plug,
state
Cole.
of Nebraska is
Yeah.
out there to be viewed.
Salaries
if
are
anybody
there
has an
now.
interest in doing that. Tim, do you want to?
Yeah, I would say,
Comments on
yeah. Thank you very much. I think, this is really based on the performance of 2016, and this really has been a transformational year for us in a lot of different ways. Certainly, the effects that we're seeing on our cost and process improvement initiative, and just around cost management in general, from the work we're doing on our supply side, material management side, to actually the cost and process and lean initiatives that we've had in play, as we've reported to the board to date, are in that $30 million plus range, and we're working for really the other 20-some million dollars over the next several years. And the teams have all crafted plans and strategies and initiatives around that. And this team is really leading that transformational change. And really that's based on the premise not to have a general rate increase for 5 years. We were able to accomplish that in 2017, and we're looking at doing that certainly for the next 4 years and potentially even beyond. I would say this team is really driving also some very clear strategic initiatives, those around best places to work, around our accountable management system, around aligning work, around staff and organization, and they're making some very, very tough decisions in that process. They're doing work around innovation. Some of our innovation initiative is scattered throughout our whole organization, but they're really supporting that and driving that within their business units as well. Financial sustainability, about how we budget, about how we control, about how we report, are going to be important things, and each of these team members are doing great work within their organizations as well. We have several customer experience journeys that we're on right now around, and that's typically not just just within one organization, but really across the whole enterprise. And it's really to make that customer experience for our customer owners better. There's a variety of other journeys that we will be engaging around in the future as well. Our integrated energy marketplace is really about how we are preparing to be a different utility in the future. It's very clear that this industry is changing, and how can we transform ourselves to be really relevant in the future to our customer owners. And that work is being done. And again, it's not a siloed kind of work. It's really a collective work of our senior team. And they're doing some pretty significant activities around that. Our focus on talent development and really growing talent within the organization. We've done over the period of years a lot of talent from outside in, and it's really about developing talent. And this team is committed to do that with inside the organization. So our continual focus is really around execution, around accountability, around budget management, around reliability, both at our plants and also our systems that we have, whether it's information systems or distribution transmission systems, around our employee engagement and how does that impact our organization, around the work that our employees are doing and they are doing in the community, making this community and the community that we serve a better place. And then their focus on safety, as I've reported to the board before, 2016, which is really about the performance of this team, was the best safety year that we had in the 70-year history at Omaha Public Power District. And I would tell you that we would not be able to do it without the commitment of the senior team, and they're doing just exceptional work. And obviously, I made this recommendation to the governance committee and feel strongly about the work they're doing and the manner in which they ought to be compensated.
All right.
I might mention that this requires 6 votes to advance, 6 yes votes.
Got a question, a couple comments.
Board comments?
One, I want to just differentiate. So Mick, thank you for walking through that. That was really helpful. The information that the benefits group gave us, I want to give us an opportunity to differentiate that from what OPPD typically does with respect to setting, establishing. So one could listen to what Mick just described and assume that that's the first time that we've done that. And I want
it's
to
not.
be really clear that that's not the case.
That's correct.
Right?
Thank you. Yes.
That's something that the board specifically requested.
That's right.
Management obviously does a lot more work to ensure we're getting the salaries right. Okay. We had a little time between meetings today, so I actually took a moment to put together my comments. So I just want to take a moment and read these. It's nice to have 2 hours in between meetings for once. I would first like to offer a heartfelt thank you to the senior management team and everyone else at OPPD for that matter who's been so patient and helpful in bringing me up to speed. New board members tend to ask many questions and in some cases ask the same question repeatedly. I have been wildly impressed by the team's passion for the work and commitment to running a successful utility. I know we don't always agree, but I appreciate your work and look forward to our future together. One of our jobs as directors is to ensure that the utility is headed in the right direction. In a time of such intense and quick change in the industry, it is increasingly difficult to clearly delineate which path is the right one. An important ingredient in getting on the right path is ensuring that we have the right leadership team at the helm, and in my opinion, we do. The challenge is no longer recruitment, it's retention. These compensation decisions are not made in a vacuum. We consider many externalities, including but not limited to the assessment, which Mick mentioned earlier. And another externality is the widening wage gap in the U.S., which is certainly of personal concern to me. OPPD is not immune to those market forces, and we should be working hard to ensure all of our employees are fairly compensated. Ultimately, as I said earlier, our job is to ensure the utility is headed in the right direction. We are, after all, a public company that has over $1 billion in annual revenues. We need not just good, but great leadership to achieve success, and in my view, these compensation adjustments are an appropriate investment in great leadership and in our future progress.
Very good.
Here, here.
Director Kavanaugh.
It's always a little awkward when you have to discuss someone's salary in public, but working in the public sector, as I learned a long time ago, that's a fact of life. That's something, certainly, to be transparent, we obviously need to do so. That being said, I just want to point out, also kind of echo Director Moody's comments that you folks do an excellent job. We appreciate it very much. We may be difficult at times. We may be a little upset at times, but we nevertheless appreciate the hard, excellent work you all do, and I'll support this.
Anybody else? Director Hurley?
Yeah, I also feel like I know every one of the corporate management. Some of them I feel I know pretty well, and I have the utmost respect for all of you. I'm probably going to vote against this, or at least abstain, and my reasoning is really just pretty simple. I think the timeline is off. One thing you heard Mick say was that we were going to continue to, if we pass this, we will continue to work and fine tune this. And although that's not my major reason, I think that should be done prior to setting the final figures. The other thing, I just feel that the timing is off in view of the fact that we have had to, and I don't want to use the word terminate, but through one process or another, over 400 people have left their jobs with OPPD at Fort Calhoun. I think is a little insensitive right at this time to make a across-the-board increase for corporate management. And again, I say that with the utmost respect for corporate management. I think you all do an outstanding job, but that's just where I come down on the issue.
All right.
I'll throw my 2 cents in. I too agree. Nobody's going to, I don't think anybody feels like we don't have the best qualified team we could have. You guys do a great job. My concerns with this raise were mollified a little bit as I went back and looked at Ms. Sedke's graph that she put together for us a couple months ago, where my concern was that income gap difference between management and everybody else that we see widening across the United States. In fact, here in the 3 years that she had graphed, it has grown closer. It hasn't grown farther apart. I think that's an excellent indicator of many things, but I was happy to see that. The structural problem I have is that we aren't, in this grouping, we do not have all apples. We have some apples and oranges. The complete compensation package is different for some of the folks here than for others. And the long-term benefit, even though it may seem equitable on the paper as presented, is not the same. And that's my concern.
All right. Anyone else want
It's a great team.
to? Very good team. I'm
The
gonna
best.
chime in
I think it's the
because-
best team.
Yeah.
You know, I don't. You know, I say they could go up against anybody in the country as far as the best team we have here, and I think it's very, very important to keep them together, especially what's happened in the last few years. The way they handled, even though Fort Calhoun was brought up, I think the sensitivity and the compassion that was shown at Fort Calhoun with our all of our team members at Fort Calhoun who had to leave those 400 people, I think the compassion and sensitivity was wonderful and beautiful and well organized.
I just want to say, I think they're a great team. They're very professional and they work hard. And I like the fact that from a diversity standpoint, they reflect the demographics of Omaha. And I'm very happy when I look across this front row, I see a lot of different faces, and it makes me happy that women and people from different walks of life or who started different walks of life are represented here at Public Power. So thank you.
All right. I might as well chime in too then at this
Might as
point. But I agree with Director Moody. This wasn't just done in a vacuum. We've put thought into this and it appears on the agenda. Again, public employees, these are public salaries. You got a right to know what we're thinking when we do this. So, but I'm going to vote yes on it for sure. The board of directors, of course, sets the policies for them to implement, working together. And we have set some pretty tough goals, quite honestly, in the years I've been on the board. They're meeting and exceeding those goals. And that's the key to me as you all know. So they've done a great job. We are in a national market. It's a very competitive market. We're very fortunate to have Tim Burke as our CEO, actually, that we get in-house. But we do pull on a national scale. Many of you, some of you are new to our team, really, in the last 3-4 years, and Javier just recently. But we get the best people from all around, and if we can grow them in-house and keep them, it's the best bet, I think. So anyway, as we look forward, Director Mines said, we are looking forward to other compensations. One thing we cannot do in the public, there are no huge perks, there's no big stock bonuses. Actually, we took away some of the cars and some of those things, to be fair about it. So anyway, I feel comfortable with where we're going with this, and we'll vote here in a minute. But this is also time for public comment. If there's any public comment that anyone would like to say, feel free to step forward. I don't see anybody rushing up to the microphone. So with that, Cam, you want to do a vote on this?
Barrett,
Yes.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Gay,
Yes.
Hurley,
Abstain.
McGuire,
Yes.
Mines.
Yes.
Moody,
Yes.
Yoder.
No.
Motion carried. 6-2.
All right.
Thank you.
Good. All right.
Item number 7, resolution number 6191. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Directors accepts the monitoring report for Strategic Directive SD9 Resource Planning in the form as set forth on Exhibit A attached hereto and made a part thereof, and finds OPPD to be sufficiently in compliance with the policy as stated.
So moved.
Second. And maybe before, very good. And maybe before we start these two monitoring reports, obviously the screen popped up before we were able to do this, but it's a great opportunity for us to kind of preempt the conversation a little bit. Over the course of the last several months, we have been talking about an additional wind contract, obviously as part of our integrated resource plan that we filed with the Western Air Power Association in the fall, or I guess it was actually finally in January. Which it was accepted by the Western Area Power Association. And so we are here ready to announce an additional 20-year agreement for 166 megawatts with NextEra. It's in what we call our Shoals area up in northeast Nebraska. Obviously, that's where the majority of our wind is in Nebraska, a little bit in the southeast. But this will kind of move us from where we are today to over 40% of our retail sales will be coming from renewable resources. We feel very pleased with that. It'll give us over 1,000 megawatts of renewable resources, and it really meets a variety of our commitments. These are incredibly competitive contracts that we have. Certainly the most recent ones that we've received have been very competitive, and we really feel good about that. So wanted to be able to share that. I'll talk a little bit more about it in the President's report, but it's a great opportunity to kind of set the stage for our next two monitoring reports that we have in front of the board today. So thank you.
All right, thanks. So Director Hurley, you want to, on that resource planning, are we going to have a presentation on that? Or
That depends on the general public, if there's any questions, or are we going
Hold
to
on.
put
Hey,
up
Kim,
one
we're
slide?
going to do a presentation again.
On the slide.
I hope so,
Well,
yeah.
do we have like a one slide and then
talked
he
about
can
that.
respond? Yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
we need
yes, there
that
it
one.
is. Thank you, Brad.
Absolutely, thank you. So for those of you that attended, we did have a presentation on SD9 this morning. I'll just give you a brief 60-second kind of summary on that presentation, and then of course we've made that available. Our CorpCom folks have made that available online, the full presentation. But primarily the charge in SD9 is that management will ensure that there are adequate resources and analytical capability available to assess our resource portfolio. We talked about how when we do the resource planning, there's a number of scenarios that we look at. There's a specific way that we do those scenarios. And then we also talked about our process. So up on the slide, we have kind of from left to right there, the process that we work to execute an IRP. And there was some interest from the board that we show this slide. And primarily, if you look on the far left, there's a purple box that identifies future stakeholder outreach. The change to the process was identified during the last IRP that we had, where we got to the end. We did that purple box on the far right, stakeholder outreach, and our customer owners had said, "Hey, you know, this is interesting. This is great. Would have loved to have been a part of this earlier on." And so we recognize the betterment there. We recognize that people have an interest and an appetite for that. I think we're doing that a little bit now on the community solar, where we brought people in on the front end, discussed customer preferences, likes and dislikes, and I think that we'll obviously plan to do that in the future when we do future integrated resource plans. So pending any other thoughts or questions, I think that's what we kind of wanted to discuss, if I understood it correctly.
Good. I've got just one comment though.
Yeah.
On the stakeholder outreach on the front and the back is a good idea, absolutely, of where we're at when we do these things. But of that, what I want to talk about, when you gave your presentation this morning, there was like 7 strategic directives that we look at to make this up. So it's not done in a just, oh, here's what we're going to do. But can you kind of go over, just maybe off the top of your head, you don't remember them, but some of those of what we're throwing out there?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a fabulous point. So real quick, I'll try and touch on each of them. So SD2 is relevant to this process because that's our competitive rates. That's our 20% below the regional average by 2020, if I recall correctly. And so that dictates that we want to optimize the portfolio. We want a low-cost solution. SD4 is reliability. Thank you, Mrs. Olson.
Cheat sheet.
That's much easier.
I thought it was going to be a test, Brad.
I thought this whole thing was a test.
You're doing great. I said that's good.
I got your back.
Thank you very much, clearly. So SD4 is a reliability component. We want the system to operate predictably and effectively. That's what our customer owners have come to expect, and that's the standard that we want to uphold. That's really core to our business. SD5, customer satisfaction. We have an acknowledgement that if our portfolio composition kind of moved away from our customer preferences, we would see things like J.D. Power scores potentially decrease, and that's a big measure in our customer satisfaction directive. Strategic Directive 7, environmental stewardship, this idea that we'll have a certain percentage of our retail electric sales coming from renewable generation. We want to make sure that we hit that. We want to make sure that we're upholding all the laws that are both state and federal, and so we take that into consideration. SD9 is the charge to do the process. I think we discussed that pretty well this morning. SD11 is economic development. We want to make sure that we do whatever we can to make sure that the Omaha area, the service territory in general, is as competitive to businesses as possible. We want to create a conducive environment where businesses that are not here can locate here, and we also want to help local businesses grow and expand. And we want to make the electricity reasonable. SD13, stakeholder outreach and communication. You see that up on the slide here. We want to make sure that we stay connected with our customer owners. We want to make sure that structurally and by process, they have an ability to communicate preferences to management and the board for consideration for significant decisions. And then finally, the enterprise risk management policy is the last SD. That is SD15. There are certain criteria and thresholds in terms of dollars that dictate what risks we can and can't accept. And so if we see a portfolio that has wild volatility, or there's a chance that the financial cost to operate the portfolio could move a lot or is excessive, we would take that into consideration during our decision-making process. That would be how I'd summarize.
And it all has to fit within the competitive Southwest Power Pool.
That's correct,
Top
sir.
it off,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
So, but hey, it's just a heck of a thing to put together. You did a good job, so.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
Hey.
Brad.
Any public comment on Resolution 6191, or resource planning? All right,
Barrett,
Yes.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Gay,
yes.
Hurley,
Yes.
McGuire,
Yes.
Mines, Moody,
Yes.
Yoder.
Yes.
Motion carried. Agenda item number 8, resolution number 6192. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Directors accepts the monitoring report for Strategic Directive SD7 Environmental Stewardship in the form as set forth on Exhibit A, attached hereto and made a part thereof, and finds OPPD to be sufficiently in compliance with the policy as stated.
So moved.
Good.
All right, Director Kavanaugh, this falls under your Committee of Public Information.
Right. Mr. Chairman, as you indicated, the Public Information Committee is responsible for evaluating the board's environmental stewardship policy on an annual basis. The committee has reviewed SD7 and finds that OPPD is sufficiently in compliance, policy as stated, and we recommend its approval.
Any board comments?
Yeah, I've got a few, and I'm wondering if you can come up for a sec, John. Do we have this?
Yeah, we're gonna see.
We had
gonna see
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see it. I just got a couple of questions. You can go to whichever microphone you want, John. Yeah.
Thank you.
So part of what I want to do, we had a really good conversation this morning. I feel like we say that a lot in these meetings, but I also felt like it got cut a little bit short. So I wanted to ask a few questions and then make a couple of comments. If you could go ahead to, I'll just show you this one.
Yep.
So first, I'd love to get your perspective, John, on this journey. You know, one of the things we looked at in the SD9 report was a nice little bar graph of us being at 5% in 2015, and now we're, on track to be at 51% by 2020. Can you talk a little bit, you've been here for a while, about what our journey towards renewable energy?
You're not buying anything?
Just a little while.
No, so the numbers there are accurate and up to date. And so, as it mentions, in 2016, we were just below 20%. What I think's significant is I believe it was 2010 or thereabouts, was we set a goal of 10% by 2020. And over these intervening years, we've added to our wind portfolio significantly, to the point where in 2020, we are projecting to be at 51%. And so with the addition of Shoals Wind Farm that our CEO mentioned a few minutes earlier, we'll be, I believe, just over 40% when that wind farm comes online.
Okay.
Which is substantial.
Yeah.
It's an impressive move, I
Yeah.
believe.
And that's part of what I wanted to bring it up, just to kind of demonstrate the pace at which
Right.
this has happened. Could you go to the next one real quick? So this is the list of all of the renewable generation that we have. And I wanted to bring it up just because this is the 900. So when Shoals comes online, it'll get to
1,060.
1,060. Okay. Okay. I just want to make sure my math is correct.
And notable here, we did add in what we believe landfill gas to be a renewable. We're reusing methane gas that's produced from the landfill at Elk City. And we do have a contract with WAPA for Western Area Power Administration for hydropower during the summer months, 82 megawatts. Winter months is about 41.
Okay, great.
Okay, and then, John, we've got in there that by 51% by 2020, so we're expecting another wind contract.
That's,
And then future,
and that's in alignment with our IRP.
right?
So we will, that's projected, so we will keep our eye on that and try to see what we can
Try to
do.
do this before the tax credits
That's right.
dissolve.
John, do we get decent capacity with the hydro?
With the hydro,
Yeah,
yes.
we do get good with that. I didn't know.
Capacity credit, you mean?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Another question for you. This slide struck me the first time I saw it, and you all have explained why we've seen such a dramatic reduction in these pollutants. I was just wondering if you could explain for us real quickly what the major causes of those reductions.
Right, and as noted there, this is in a one-year term from 2015 to 2016. And I believe, well, I know that in 2016 in April timeframe, we switched North Omaha units 1 through 3. We stopped burning coal permanently on those units. We have them available on gas, and they have actually run probably up to 3 times this summer during peaking periods. But that's a substantial amount of the reduction of these pollutants. I would tell you as well that DSI and ACI were installed on North Omaha 4 and 5, and also Nebraska City Unit 1.
Could you, just for the public,
Dry sorbent injection controls the SO2, sulfur dioxide. The ACI, or activated carbon injection, controls the mercury. And those were required as part of the regulation, the MATS regulation, Mercury Air Toxic Standard. And so we did reduce the emissions in compliance with that regulation. So the combination of the two had substantial reductions in emissions. Yeah.
Great. I have one more question on this slide, Kim. Keep going. There you go. So our Cool Smart program, I was just wondering if you could explain that graph to the right. I know it might be a little bit hard for some folks to see, but this also really struck me how, what that graph tells us.
Yeah, this has been the Cool Smart program was put into service with collaboration with many groups at OPPD. Customer service has probably had the lead. It's a device that resides on your air conditioning unit, and really synchronizes 2 groups, A and a B. But at the end of the day, what it does is the green line is what our projected peak would be on that day. And when we put that Cool Smart program into effect for, I believe, 2.5 hours.
We cycle between 3 and 7:30.
Okay.
But any one customer is 2.5 hours.
Okay, yeah. So that's the orange line is basically what the actual use was by our customers. So you shave that peak, thereby putting off the need to build additional capacity.
Or run our peaking plants.
Or run our peaking plants, exactly.
Okay. So thank you for explaining that. That was my last question. And I just want to editorialize and suggest that to those of you in the audience that aren't participating, this is an exceptional program that helps us reduce peak, reduce emissions. So plug that.
Personal experience, we don't notice it.
Yeah, me as well.
John, one quick question. I have Cool Smart. I don't notice it. How many homes or residents have the Cool Smart on their AC unit?
Just over 40,000, about 41,000.
Okay. Out of a possible.
300 is a percent.
Okay. All right.
Residential.
Residential.
One of the things we talked about today is we're also looking at continuing this program, but also looking at kind of a bring your thermostat to peak demand. And so we're working through that. I think the board will be hearing that in the future as well. So
Because, I live in a condo where there's a bunch of air conditioners on top, and I don't think the Cool Smart program does that yet. So I don't know how you could do that, to look into
sure
that.
can.
We have programs for that.
Yeah.
Good. They haven't talked to us about that.
Just a couple more comments, and then I'll be quiet for a while. We didn't have a chance, and again, we got cut short this morning to really discuss the fact that we are breezing past our goal of long-term goal of 30%. And I know that we're going to spend a lot of time discussing the strategic directive at our retreat in a couple weeks. But I just wanted to make that abundantly clear, if it wasn't already, that we will be at 50%, give or take, in a couple of years, and yet we still have a long-term goal. So I look forward to the discussion wherein we revisit that. And I'm also interested in, and again, I'm not going to go into detail here, but some potential other metrics that I think might be interesting for us to look at. CO2 equivalent per megawatt hour is a good example of that. Looking at what we're emitting per megawatt hour, I think would be interesting. And the other thing that I think I would be interested in, from a strategic directive that's really forward-looking, is to what extent are we really leading by example? So in other words, we talk about the importance of energy efficiency to our customers, and we promote it. I would like us to do a really good job of demonstrating that as well. And I just don't know whether or not we really do that. I don't know how energy efficient this building is, as an example. So I think it would be interesting for that strategic directive to compel us to really lead by example so that our customers then can look to us as a shining light for energy efficiency as well. All right, I'll be quiet now.
I can certainly tell you that Vice President Brown, as interviewing for a building service director, has made that part of her interview conversation with applicants. So I think you'll see more of that in the future here. So.
Okay, and Director Moody, you brought up a subject. We'll throw it out one more time. We are going to discuss many of these again at our board retreat, which is open to the public, July 24th from 8 to 5 at the UNO. What is the correct term for it?
The Community Engagement Center.
Community Engagement Center on UNO. So look on the website. All the information is on there. I know many of you know about that. It is open to the public, and we will discuss many of these issues. So, any other board comments?
I would just concur with Mr. Moody about last time at this very discussion, I was suggesting that we go up to 50% by 2020. I said, just showing you all guys who voted against me, I was right.
Hey, so Director, you knew that Facebook thing was coming, right? At the pace of value is the smartest thing ever. Anyway, that'll be a good discussion, though. It's kind of
It'll be fun.
Talk about Director Kavanaugh.
As again, this resolution is just a confirmation on conformity.
What we're doing, what we have now,
Policy.
and if we can tweak it and make it better in the future. So.
And I think the CO2 discussion is an interesting one. It's going to give more work to Mr. Hansen's. I was thinking about that today. I said, oh, we're going to put that out, and his team's going to have to start figuring out the numbers as far as, what is, that we don't just blow a number out there and then it's totally unrealistic. And that's where we need your team. Another example why we need this team helping with us and working the numbers and everything else between Javier's group and John's group.
And like you say, as a team, it's amazing how many different things.
We got to have to be able to balance all
so.
of these directives.
I agree. Did you have something down there?
Yeah, I got something down there.
Go ahead.
So back to the Cool Smart program and those two curves. I had the joy of living in Juneau back in 1990-91, and there we had a program that was very similar to this. It's a program where our water heater, if we signed up with the utility, would shut off during the day. So a little more drastic than 15 minutes and air conditioning, but it was a successful program. So there, 27 years ago, we had a program of saving energy that you could opt into. It wasn't forced on you. And I'm happy to see that we're doing this, and just to say that there is much more that we can do. The context for doing more, in my mind, is having an environmental directive that says something about the environment besides just we're doing renewable energy. We are, in fact, the largest emitter in the county. We are the one that creates the greatest risk and hazard for the residents of the county, and having some kind of recognition of that, I think, is important. I know that President CEO Burke talked today about right sizing, and Nebraska as a whole is kind of over capacity. We know that. So one of the ways, and I know we're on the way there, is to right size, and that would have environmental impacts as well. And I guess I'm looking forward to that, hoping that our adoption of these technologies that have been around for a while and are changing as we speak, we think about adopting a little more of those, do more energy efficiency that would allow us to reduce our need for what we're generating. I guess that's all I have at this point.
All right. Is there any public comment?
Thank you.
Dave Corbin, 1002 North 49th Street. I heard today at the committee meeting that you only had 13 comments. I want to point out that many groups meet and submit comments, and what I'm going to tell you today is really a collection of many people that have worked on this. I did notice on your list, and it was talked about a little bit on the list on the last slide presentation, that none of the environmental groups were listed either collectively or individually, even though we've been here all along, whether as Clean Energy Omaha or OTOC or Sierra Club or what it happens to be, and I think that could be added. Right now, I'm going to present you with the Missouri Valley Group Sierra Club's recommendations for SD7. The first recommendation is that OPPD would receive 50% of its energy from renewable energy by 2020 and 100% by somewhere between 2025 and 2030. The second is taken directly from SMUD, and it addresses some of the things that were just discussed. OPPD would cut carbon dioxide emissions to 10% of 1990 levels. That's what theirs is. I think we could do the same. The third, you won't be surprised to hear, and you might know that some people have been talking about, refers to the Green Fund. Now, the Green Fund shall be a separate fund that will be allocated by a process developed by a committee of customer owners with expertise in renewable energy through open nominations and appointed by the board and overseen by the board. The fourth one is also taken directly from SMUD, and it really overlaps, like was said earlier, from one strategic directive to the other, but it refers to new technologies and keeping your eye on new technologies, whether it's battery, electric cars, and so on. Those I will give to you. Those are the official and voted on by the Missouri Valley Group Sierra Club. You also talked about community engagement, and I've said before, and I would hope you would think again as you look at your strategic directives, not today, but in your other meeting, that you will still have some opportunity for people who can't be here to participate with questions either online or some other way of engaging live in this day and age in a meeting. And finally,
30 seconds.
The Volkswagen settlement, our governor still has not appointed any agency to be in charge of the Volkswagen settlement. It would make sense that OPPD would try to be putting pressure there, because what a lot of states are doing is using that to jumpstart electric vehicles and charging stations. And I think you probably have a lot more influence on them than I do. So I would hope you would do that. Thank you.
Was that a poem?
Great idea. Pretty neat. Awesome.
John Pollock, 1412 North 35th Street, Omaha. Just like to say I'm in substantial agreement with Dave Corbin's remarks. I've submitted my own remarks to the board, and I will do my best to not repeat what I said in those in the interest of everybody's time. For this particular one, I'm just going to reiterate that we need to reduce our carbon dioxide emissions, because carbon dioxide is a leading cause of climate change. We're in trouble now, and the longer we go, the worse the trouble we're going to be in. And I don't know what else to say about that one. You've heard it before, and I'm probably going to keep repeating it. We're in the 22nd month in a row of above normal temperatures for Omaha, working on number 23, and all that is an illustration that climate change is occurring fast enough that we're getting a new normal, a normal that was based in something that was normal 20 years ago is no longer adequate. Even if we're not setting a lot of records, the baseline, even for here, just keeps going up and up and up. And without that, we'd be in such an unlikely statistical run that we shouldn't be seeing this in our lifetimes. Thank you.
My name's Mark Welsh. I live at 5611 Howard Street. And I agree with both the preceding speakers wholeheartedly. Nebraskans for Peace and I, who I work for, are very thrilled with what OPPD has done regarding the use of renewable energy sources in the past few years. You've increased your goal to get power from renewable resources from 5% to 30%, and you have already passed that. And you're going to pass it up to 40%, it sounds like, by the end of this year or next year. OPPD became a leader, an industry leader in this area, and I urge you to continue in that role, and I know you will. Unfortunately, the newest research on climate change and the effects it will have on people in Nebraska and the U.S. and around the world is more devastating than it was just 2 years ago. Here in Nebraska, my family's farm, along with all the other farms and ranches, are already suffering from more and longer heat waves and droughts like the one we're going to be experiencing soon, I believe. When it rains more often, it comes down faster and in larger amounts. This is causing flooding, and it does not allow all of that rain to soak into the soil to give life to the crops and to replenish the aquifers that so many rely on to irrigate the crops and provide water to livestock and for our home use. We need OPPD to continue to be a leader in renewable energy generation. Our federal government is not taking that role. If any company in this country can do it, you can. I urge you to affirm and thank OPPD's senior management and employees for all the work they have done to meet your goal and to set in your strategic directive number 7 to get 30% of your retail power from renewable resources. But because continuing to burn fossil fuels will make climate change worse, I hope you will modify SD7 to tell management that you want all power generated, not just the power sold at retail, but all power generated to be 50%. Actually, scratch that. 50% is not good enough because you've already said this morning you're going to hit 51% by 2020 anyway. So you need goals that are going to stretch your management to make them do more than what some think is possible. I urge you to listen to Ann. She seems to have a little wisdom in this area. One of only 2 members, I might add, that have been here longer than me. I've been attending these meetings almost every month for a lot of years. So listen to her carefully on the 24th. I think doing this is very possible without raising our rates because the cost of wind and solar power continue to drop quickly. Mid-American Energy in Iowa has a goal of 100% renewable energy by 2020. And I think their electric rates are lower or very close to OPPD's rates. And the farmers and ranchers in Nebraska, who are the core of our state's economy, need you to take this bold next step into our energy future. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
I'll speak later.
Okay. We're done.
Like now.
Yeah, there'll be another time for public comment on open agenda. Looks like it. Vote.
Barrett,
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Gay.
Yes.
Curley,
Yes.
McGuire.
Yes.
Hines.
Yes.
Moody,
Yes.
Yoder.
Go.
Motion carried 7-1.
All right. Well, really what everyone's waiting for, the president's report.
Oh, yeah, yeah, very good. Well, thank you very much. We'll go ahead and talk a little bit about a variety of different things going on at the district, a little bit in the past and a little bit about what's coming up in the future as well. So I'm going to start a little bit on our generation side. Nebraska City 1, generation for the month was at 88% capacity factor. Year to date, it's 81%, but obviously for the month of May, it was 97%. Nebraska City 2 was at a 72% capacity factor, and that really had to do, and the year-to-date number really has to do to a 45-day outage that our team put together to replace the low and intermediate pressure turbine that was damaged several years ago. And the team did an exceptional job there. I think these capacity factors represent the work that our teams are doing around maintaining, and when we do have an outage, restoring that outage relatively quickly. And the 45-day outage, as reported to the board last month, was several days in advance of the schedule startup, and obviously was under budget. And so the team has done a great job with that. Regarding our renewable generation, for the month of June, it contributed 22% of OPPD's retail sales, and the capacity factor for the wind was at 38.1%. Year to date, we're at a little over 32% of retail sales, and wind capacity factor year to date is 45.7%, which is pretty significant. It's interesting today, we have up on our senior management screen, we have a board that pops up. At 7:30 today, renewables was generating at about 7.2% of our sales, and then at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it was 0.5%. So it's interesting the challenges with the renewable, but it's obviously very competitive for us, and it's part of this kind of balance of generating sources that we need to operate in the system. So that was just a snapshot for today, and today is not the hottest day of the season that we've had, but we see some very good year-to-date capacity factors, and certainly we'll see that improve as we get to the fall and to the winter and to the spring, where typically is where we see many times over 50% capacity factors on some of our wind farms. Obviously, we talked a little bit about this earlier just to prep for our SD7 and SD9 conversation, but I think this is a big deal for us in a number of different ways, and I think this is a pretty significant event for the folks in Wayne County. They are incredibly excited to really be part of this growing transformation in our industry, where we'll be adding another 160 megawatts of wind to our portfolio, which really matches with our commitment that we made last year in our integrated resource plan. The board approved for us to move forward and begin to work through the acquisition of this wind. We have some folks from NextEra that are here. Phil Clements here with NextEra, and obviously has been at several of our board meetings, but it's a great partnership. It's the first really agreement that we have with NextEra, so it's really not only diversifying our wind across our region, but also diversifying across different developers as well, and we're glad to be partners with them. They've been great partners. So the Shoals Wind Farm will be constructed in Wayne County. It's anticipated to bring 200 construction jobs and 6 to 10 full-time jobs over the course of its operation. And as I said before, this will kind of move us to kind of over 40% of renewable. 40% of our retail sales will come from renewable, and it will move us above the 1,000 megawatts renewable energy resources. And I think that's kind of interesting. I just read an article on the state of Iowa. I know we focus on kind of one investment company that is doing this for investment reasons, but you know, OPPD will have a greater percentage than the state of Iowa. So I think that's kind of an interesting fact, and certainly leading certainly folks in the Midwest with not only goals but with action of what we're doing. I kind of want to move to the next piece, which is around our community and some of the work that we've done in our storm restoration. And I'll talk about the employee side in just a little bit, but obviously we had a storm that went through our service territory in June 16th. And it was a pretty significant storm. It was OPPD's fourth worst storm from a number of customers being impacted. But I think what's really important for that is Vice President Dogman commented today, within 24 hours of that event, of the 76,000 plus customers that were out of power, 70% of those customers were restored within 24 hours. It's a pretty significant accomplishment by our resources. And right away, as we saw the storm and the devastation of that storm, you know, we began to call in our mutual aid crews and friends from across the state. So folks like Lincoln Electric System, Nebraska Public Power, Southern Public Power, Loop Public Power, also Mid-American Energy, a variety of contractors that we have partnerships with and we have used over time came to support OPPD and actually doubled the size of our crews out in the field. And so that was pretty significant. We talked today in our board meeting that this was the fourth largest storm. The impact of that is about $15 million. About 2/3 of that comes from the damage that occurred in our transmission, about 1/3 of that from our distribution side. And so this is a pretty significant event. We had over 4.5 miles of 69 kV transmission line that was down, 7 miles of 345 transmission down in a specific circuit. I live in that neck of the woods, and when I talked to many of the folks in our call center, they said, we're really glad you were out of power for 3 days because it gave us a great conversation to talk to our customers about even our CEO is out of power. But it's pretty devastating in that neck of the woods, and our folks did a great job. But it's about the relationships that we have with a variety of the other public power entities and the private contractors that really we are able to mobilize and to restore power in a relatively quick period of time. And we identified we would have 99.6% of these affected customers restored, I believe, by Tuesday evening, and we were able to live with that commitment that we made. As Director Yoder said, in his neck of the woods, there was a transmission line that didn't get completely because it was a long transmission line that had distribution underbuild. There were some of those last customers that were restored later in the week, and I'll talk about the customers in a little bit. But it speaks to the great storm restoration and the community response that we had with our partners in the field. I'll talk a little bit about community again.
Tim, did you want the video to play?
Oh, yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for reminding me. There's a little video I thought that we would play just in response. Yeah, thank you very much. That was a great, but that's very true. We had employees coming in without even being called in. They understood the damage, they saw the damage, they heard the damage, they saw it on the news, and were coming in, and obviously we didn't stop them because we needed them to provide that support. And I'll talk a little bit about kind of our employee commitment in just a little bit here. But another community event that occurred actually on June 17th was our participation in the NAACP Juneteenth parade. And this is really around the emancipation of the African American slaves throughout the Confederate South. And the freedom that occurred many years ago. And this parade occurs each year. In this picture, we have multiple employees that obviously went from this parade, and some of them went directly to the storm restoration efforts. So it's Angela Carter, Helen Thompson, Amber Turner, Lisa Olson was there, and Maurice Kimsey, Samuel Adams, James Gould, Kia Newby Knight, and Joyce Cooper. And most of the pictures I've seen outside of this one was with Lisa and Maurice with phones in their ear because Maurice was doing customer contacts because he's an key account executive, and they did some great work. But it really represents a core value commitment that we have about honoring our community, and we continue to do that in this regard. Another community event that we had was our Day of Giving, and no, most people said this is just a stage photo shoot. I really wasn't pulling weeds that day, but I really was. I stopped by each of the sites where our employees were working just to see what they were doing, and they put me to work right away. So this was in collaboration with the United Way of the Midlands and other community partners, where we had over 100 employees on June 16th during the day volunteer their time to assist a variety of different organizations. So in this example, we were at No More Empty Pots. It's at the Florence Community Garden. We were at the Open Door Mission. We were at the Hope Center for Kids and Lutheran Family Services and the United Way of the Midlands. And so we also had our folks in our South Rural, out of our Syracuse office and our Blair office, provide a variety of other community support out there. And this is really part of the National American Public Power Association's Day of Giving. And so it's part of our commitment to that from a public power being responsive to the community, and really lived our core values of passion to serve, honoring our community, and caring for each other. So I just want to thank the employees, their management team that allowed them to participate in this event. We do a safety reminder for us, and this is about an employee that died on September 7th, 1965. And so Merv Stengel died after making contact with a line in which he was working on 91st and Charles Street in Omaha. He was working as part of a three-man crew during a storm response. This is kind of fitting that we talk about the severity of the work that our team does during these kinds of events. Casey, as he was known in the district, he was 34 years old and had 11 years total service at OPPD at the time of his death. Prior to OPPD, Casey served in the United States Marine Corps and served in the Korean War. He was survived by his wife Rita, his daughter Mary Beth, and his sons Wayne, Stephen, and Timothy. And Wayne was obviously a field supervisor for us at OPPD and recently retired several years ago. But it's a constant reminder of us, for us, about the work that our men and women do and that we see. And I do want to talk in this regard about that. I think it's really important to share this. We talked, and you saw the video about the F1 and the F2 tornado that occurred primarily in Sarpy County and in other parts, in Cass County and other parts of our service territory. And we had just incredible response from our men and women. So you see the line techs out there doing the work, and the line technicians, and we have bird dogs with each of the contractors that are responsible to assist them on switching and coordination of activity. And they do some great work, and they work 16-hour days for 6 and 7 straight days. Matter of fact, that next weekend, when everybody was back on, we still had crews working to reconstitute our system and to continue with our transmission work that we were doing. We also had, again, folks, Loop Power and LES and MEC, Mid-American Energy, NPPD, and Southern Public Power District, and a variety of our partner contractors participate. But what you don't see are all the men and women behind the scenes. Folks are at the control center, folks that were worrying about logistics, trying to find hotel rooms from our visiting supporters during College World Series week, by the way. Very difficult about how to get lunches to these individuals at each of the sites before they leave the site in the morning. And so it's refueling trucks, it's material and support and all the things that we do. And then our men and women in the call center that are answering customer concerns and responses. And then our corporate communication team that essentially worked 24 hours in shifts responding to media requests and a variety of different things like that. So I just want to thank them for that. I want to thank our customers who were patient with us. who understood the magnitude of this storm. I want to thank our community officials, the emergency response officials that are so crucial to us as we're trying to get to places relatively quickly and helping us in that regard. And we had great communication with them throughout the course of the 5 or 6 or 7 days that we were working on this outage. And so I think that's just a great example of our employees' commitment and how they live our core values. Now, what you don't see in the front of the World Herald or on the TV is the men and women that do this same kind of activity. I talked about a Nebraska City 2 outage where our men and women spent 10 to 12 hours daily for 45 days trying to restore the turbine and a variety of other maintenance work that was required at Nebraska City 2, and did the same thing when we had outages required at North Omaha 4 and 5 to get those plants back up. And again, you don't see them. They don't show up in the news and they don't show up in the TV, but they do a lot of work behind the scenes, and the support folks that we have to support them as well is pretty important for what we do. And so just a huge thank you to the men and women at OPPD that do so many great things, that keep us generating electricity, that keep us restoring power, and all the behind the scenes work that they do that most people don't see. And I think the board certainly sees an appreciation and an understanding of the great work that they do. So it's a great opportunity for them, for us, for me, on behalf of the management team, on behalf of the executive team, on behalf of the board, to really thank them for their efforts.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Very good. Thanks, Jim. And on behalf of the board, I'm glad you said that, because I heard from every single one of us appreciates hard work, and that is a very good point. This was a visible thing that the public got to see, but so many other times, as you brought up, there's so much dedication going on behind the scenes. So it's just remarkable. But on behalf of the board of directors as well, a big thank you and just great job, yeoman's work. That's for sure. All the time, actually. So. Anyway, with that, thank you very much. We're going to do public comment. This is the time that anybody can, opportunity for comment on any item you'd like. We still abide by the 3-minute rule.
Thank you. I'm Jay Leiter, Associate Professor of Communication Studies and Sustainability at Creighton University, and I'm here speaking on behalf of the Omaha Area Higher Education Sustainability Alliance. On Monday, our group sent a letter to Mr. Burke and Ms. Tracy to distribute to you all. I hope you all have that. And our alliance is a non-political, non-binding entity that seeks exclusively opportunities for shared understanding, exchange of best practices, utilizing our collective voice through civil discussion with local agencies. And over the last 5 years, you may have noticed that all of the institutions listed on that letter have gone through a kind of a transformation and a building up of our own capacity on our own campuses to address sustainability issues, the least of which is not greenhouse gas emissions through consumption of electricity. And so we wanted to address you in the letter and in person for 3 reasons, and we could have spoken to SD 7 a moment ago, but I think our letter is more general. We certainly support the work of setting goals and setting targets that you find particularly in SD7, and we would support all of the voices, some in the audience and some on the board, to go ahead and make more aggressive goals because of the success that you've had to reach the targets that you've been seeking. Second, we would encourage you in the language of the strategic directives to be open to possibilities about ways to describing support infrastructure around renewable energy in particular, but all kinds of things and partnerships in the city and in the region that would include district energy planning, aggressive residential and commercial incentives for conservation, additional opportunities for local generation, and enhancement of electric vehicle stations. I thought the idea was interesting a moment ago about the Volkswagen settlement. And then finally, in support of the graph that was presented that included 2 modes or 2 frameworks for stakeholder input, we urge you to reach out to groups such as ours that have formed around these common issues as stakeholder groups, or others that represent large market segments. Collectively, the 6 universities and colleges on that list comprise an awful lot of the constituency of this region, and so we think we've we think we're doing some good work together. I will mention just briefly that the people in the Alliance are at the sort of management level of the sustainability offices of each of the institutions, but we come before you having had
30 seconds.
Sure. Expressed support from our highest administrators, presidents, provosts for being here. And we know that you have a lot of partnerships with those institutions, and we hope that you will continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you.
John Pollock, 1412 North 35th Street. I wanted to talk a little bit. I decided that shutoffs and the customer experience might go best in SD5, although there might be another place to put it. And I did submit comments. Two things that I'd like to add. One is that I know that you're already doing a customer survey. I think it was J.D. Power. And that's, I was kind of struck that that's good for general purposes, but you're not going to be getting very many of the relatively small subgroup of your customers that have gone through the shutoff process and attempt to reestablish electrical power. So I think you need an additional measure to find out what's happening with those people. Just anecdotally, we've got a friend who has not been shut off, but she's at the low-income end of your customers. Her internet service consists of going to the public library if she wants Wi-Fi, and we talked to her about getting energy assistance through LIHEAP because the base rates were going up, and her response to that was, all those hoops I'd have to jump through for twice a year, you know, I can't do it. I've got too many other things that are more, you know, that are more critical for my being able to maintain. So there's an administrative burden on the people that are going through that process that also needs to be considered. Regarding the weather, jet stream is lifted north. We're in a incipient drought situation. It's going to get worse. We are probably going to be seeing, a lot of heat, maybe excessive heat the next week or two. We've got a preliminary indication that after about a week, the jet stream might dip south again. That'll give us a little cooler weather. Also, the danger of more thunderstorms. This time of year, wind is usually the primary hazard. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
My name's John Crabtree. I'm the Beyond Coal campaign representative here in Nebraska for the Sierra Club. Actually, I'm going to put these on because I'm 53 now, or almost 53. Came down from Lyons, Nebraska. Well, actually, I didn't come down from Lyons, Nebraska. I came over from York because I was at the OPPD board meeting today, too, and I really hope you guys don't do that very many times because it makes it a lot harder to go to both. And I didn't want to miss being here. Sierra Club staff and volunteers have been meeting with OPPD customer owners and members of the Omaha community, learning more about their vision for OPPD. Overwhelmingly, we've heard consistent and passionate support for several priorities for your strategic directives discussions. 1, set a goal of 100% clean energy and start making plans to meet that goal. OPPD has already established its role as a leader when it comes to clean energy development. But it's now unequivocal that the standard for clean energy leadership in this country is nothing short of a commitment to achieve 100% clean energy and to develop milestones and plans to get there. If you need further inspiration, look to the 36 cities across the United States that have already made an enforceable commitment to achieve 100% clean energy. Moreover, more than 110 U.S. mayors have endorsed powering their communities with 100% clean renewable energy. Omaha, too, is ready to join their ranks, and your community is looking to you to lead the way by updating Strategic Directive 7 to replace the current 30% renewable goal with a commitment to achieve 100% clean energy. 100% clean energy will solidify OPPD's role in cost savings, promoting innovation, attracting new businesses, and fostering economic growth in the community, all of which are key priorities in Strategic Directive 11 as well. Second, or another priority, to seize technological advancement in the industry and plan for things like electric cars and distributed generation. The board should not lose sight of its commitment to leadership and powering the future, and the spirit of innovation that resonates throughout its strategic directives. Leadership from utilities can have real-world impacts. In Kansas City Power and Light's investment in a clean charge network has spurred a 78% increase in electric vehicle sales in just 1 year, placing Kansas City on the map as the top growth market nationwide for electric vehicles in 2017.
30 seconds.
Okay. And the third priority that we've heard from people that we've been talking to is to elevate equity and fairness in the revision of all strategic directives. Sierra Club remains deeply concerned with OPPD's rate redesign. We ask that you revisit Strategic Directive 2 and define fair, reasonable, and non-discriminatory rates. OPPD should expand its definition and measurement of safety to include the impact that you have, that policies and operations have on customer owners and the community at large. This should factor in impact of pollution from power plants, safety of residents who have their power shut off, and OPPD should update Strategic Directive 6 to include a goal of having 0 utility shutoffs and convene a customer owner task force to identify policy vehicle goals to achieve that. Can I give you, these are our official comments.
Yes.
Thank
We'll
you.
give them to the board.
For your distribution, which include what I said, but more. And I just want to let you know too, we have about 100 plus comments now that have not been through the system. And I will find a friendly way to transmit that to you so that we make your life easier, okay? I promise. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? All right, that we're adjourned. Thanks.
Thanks. Thank you.